Next on stage is the first one of the series of 4. We decided that we're going to show you what some previous winners are doing for brands. We realized that from the last 10 years, a lot of startups that won the startup competition ended up doing great things for brands and are helping all these brands to do different kind of things. So that's why we call it LeWeb success stories. The first one that will come here is a company called Scoop.it, which is actually not a company that won LeWeb. Back in 2009, the company that won LeWeb was called Guillaume, and Guillaume made a huge pivot to Scoop.it. I actually know pretty well the story because it's a previous company I worked for. But they completely changed from Guillaume mobile internet to Scoop.it Curation. So Guillaume Decugis, who's the co-founder and CEO of Scoop.it, will now speak about curation for brands during 10 minutes. Please help me welcome Guillaume Decugis.
Hello. So thank you, Cedric, for the intro. So I'm going to start to explain a bit about what Cedric's been discussing about our pivot. So we were a different company once, and we were brilliant, and we won LeWeb. How cool is that? And we won LeWeb because we had that terrific idea for mobile internet, which was back 6 years ago. We felt that mobile operators were just offering portals. There were too many constraints in that. We couldn't choose the services we wanted. So we did an app that looked like that, if some of you remember. Little widgets or apps that you could customize and personalize to really access the services you wanted. And this looked pretty cool. And if it looks familiar, well, maybe this is because then this happened. So 7 months after we won LeWeb, we were screwed. We had Apple launching this, and not only Apple, but then Android competing in that market. So we made that huge pivot, and we became Scoop.it, as Cedric explained. So that's a bit about us. So before I'll the idea of this talk is to talk about how we're helping brands and what the future of brands is related to media. So to discuss about that, I'm going to step back even further ago and talk about the history of communication. Communication in history, up until recently, has been a one-to-many story. It's been a top-down approach where some happy few, the famous people in this planet, were telling stories, were reaching to the masses through storytellers. And if you look at the history, the technology in communication, for thousands of years, it's only done one thing. From the invention of printing, from the invention of writing to printing to mass media in the 20th century, it's only done one thing. It's increased the number of people who could consume content. But it hasn't increased at all the number of people who could actually be the famous people on TV, on the radio, or on the headlines of the magazines. And then the internet changed everything. From a story of mass distribution up until the end of the 20th century, the story of mass media. Over the last 10 years, we had a story of mass creation with computers, smartphones, GoPro cameras. All of those devices help us create content. The consequence of that is we now live in this web. The web today looks like this. We have a huge crowd where everybody can make some noise. Everybody can create and publish a lot of content. So we have a lot of people who are lost, trying to understand who they should be listening. And we had also people, including brands, who are looking at how do I connect with my audience? How do I get heard? And that's why we decided to make this pivot, because we felt this is a really cool problem to solve, and that's what we're doing, helping to do at Scoop.it. So for brands, it means we've shifted from a world which was relatively easy. When you have a few people controlling the media, what you had to do is buy something called advertising, and then you could have your message broadcasted to the masses. But now, the masses are not listening anymore. There's attention scarcity. And so it's been a race to become a media, to stay relevant. And that race has been a bit crazy. It's been sponsoring large events like the America's Cup. And to me, the craziest thing of all is this. You have a soft drink company doing what NASA is supposed to do, send people to space. I mean, that company has a space program that surpasses the space program of like many countries. So, this is a very challenging context where, brands have to question themselves. Is this what all the brands are going to do in the future? So the way we look at it is, the opportunity is actually different. We've moved from this top-down pyramid for content distribution to a situation where all of us can create content to all of us, and when there's a layer in between, which is a great opportunity, including for brands. And this is content curation. So what's content curation? Curators are those people who spend time finding, collecting, organizing, and giving context and meaning to content. And I love what Steve Rosenbaum says about those people, because they're providing so much value. Good curators provide so much value, they become web superheroes. So don't you want your brand to be a superhero? So first of all, before we move into that, you might question if it works. And I want to give you like 2 series of examples. First, let's look at the media industry. The media industry has been in a crisis because of digital. But over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen this. We've seen amazing success stories in digital, and all of them involve some form of curation. The latest one being Upworthy, which is 100% curation. And in less than 2 years, they've been having the fastest growth in the media to 30 million monthly uniques. And that's building on the success of the Huffington Post. I could have quoted Business Insider in there. So the media model itself is shifting to a model where instead of producing all of the content you need, you're using a mix of aggregation, curation, and your own creation. On our own scale, we've seen pretty strong success as well. We celebrated our 2 years since we pivoted and launched the live version, the public version of Scoop.it. In 2 years, our community of curators have curated 50 million pieces, and have attracted 100 million people to the platform in just 2 years. So what's in it for brands? I want to give you a few examples of brands using that model to make an impact. And to start with, I'll start with Orange. So brands have all sort of presence. Could be bloggings, could be social networks. The question then is, how do you keep them engaged? So one example on how to use curation is actually becoming that place, feeding your social networks, becoming that resource where people will find relevant content that they want to consume. Very simple example, integrated on Facebook and on their corporate website. Another example is, brands sometimes have to talk to very different audiences. So this is the French postal service. Of course, they have a huge consumer audience. People still buy stamps. But they have a specific group they wanted to target, which are e-commerce vendors. Those guys are consuming a lot of services from postal services, and they wanted to have a specific communication to them. So what they did is they started a page where they curated a lot of content on e-commerce seen by the web. And in just about 3 months, they multiply by 7 the traffic of this section of their website, which I find pretty interesting. Another thing is, a lot of brands have some problems communicating themselves with the content they create. EDF is the French electricity producer, one of the largest in the world, if not the largest in the world. And if you don't know that, France relies 70% on nuclear energy. So will you believe those guys if they tell you nuclear energy is safe? They have this problem. So by making it a conversation, they can actually curate content from other people talking openly about nuclear energy, and they can make a conversation between all sorts of different people, and make their point of view heard. last example, before I wrap up, is what the University of San Francisco has been doing. So we are actually headquartered in San Francisco, and not very far from those guys. I think they've done something amazing. This is their communication department, and they've been doing and the university is not the kind of like forward-thinking, marketing-leading type of company you would think of. But those guys have been doing something that a lot of brands, I think, should be doing. Is a lot of brands have that problem where they want to claim something, a brand message, and they would want that message to be carried by their community. And Curation is a great way to do that. So their brand message is about changing the world from here. It's a great and noble thing, but it can also sound very fluffy. And so a great way to show that, no, this is a real message, this is something people believe in, is actually to make your community say it and then curate content from them. And so they've been actually using hashtags on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook to actually curate the best content they could find of people, of voices in their community, faculty, students, who are representing that brand message in the best possible way. So instead of them saying, hey, we change the world from here, they have 1,000 people now saying it, which I think is pretty cool. So I think the question is no longer whether brands should become media, as Brian Solis said a few years ago, but how. And I want to leave you with this thought. Some brands can do this. They can actually become media companies. To me, Red Bull is not a soft drink company anymore. They're a media company, probably closer to Universal Music or all the groups like this, and they happen to monetize with soft drinks. There's a real shift in the company. They have lots of people working in this business. But I think very few companies could do that. So for the rest of the brands who cannot become that, I engage you to think about what it means to become a post-Web 2.0 media, a media editor. Thanks very much.